Good morning,
Good morning, guys. Good morning.
Welcome to FYI. It is Friday, the 6th of May, 2022. I'm here with you, Dreadplan, Sharon Duncan, Walton is here. We're starting off on a very bright note today. Yes, it was good. Yes, it was good. They had a lot of reflection, and guys, I asked you, did your reflection, but I asked you to do Friday before here on Wednesday. I hope that you did. It was a reflection of where you came from, and so we have better appreciation for each other and our heritage as well this year.
Correct.
Right, Amanda wasn't here on Wednesday. She was missed a little bit on Wednesday also.
I was definitely
Yeah. But TGIF.
Yeah.
You know, this was a light week for FYI. You know, Monday no show, Thursday no show. We got 3 days. 3 days. Here with 2 cups of tea, living the life.
Living the
best life.
Yeah. That do what I'm doing. God will look me this way. Because if that one that just goes in milk. So, you know what I do. You know what I gotta do. But trust you guys had a great day at my side.
it was a good day yesterday. A day for me of quiet reflection, just spend some time with the boys and all about, us being in this one space as different people being different meanings, what it means and why it is important that we make that a success.
Yeah.
Some of our ancestors, they came here voluntarily, some of our ancestors were brought in chains, but we are here. That's just how we move forward. Yes. As a
That's right. You're right.
So, it was a good thing.
I'm thankful, that's your fancy.
Yes.
I'm thankful for the viewing traits. I'm thankful for the carnival in that quarter. I'm thankful for the passage.
Come for long take based on this conversation.
I'm not sure about the Chinese tea,
Really?
but they came in ships.
Yeah.
You remember that book? Yeah, there's a book this they came in ships.
I think Sharon knows a couple of those social studies books that we have primary school.
We came from 1, 2, and 3. They came in ships. And you know what I think is such a beautiful song? There's this Calypso that is. That is on the drive, that is grounded in. Beautiful ballad about birds. Nice. So about just how the Indian descendants came to the Ganges, afterwards to the Nile, and just how important it is that even though you came by diverse names, that you meld that to have one function in society. So I really would come in and sound first. Because it's a deep question. This thing about us being here is a very, very deep question. We just have to make it. I don't know how we're gonna.
I'm just happy we came. The process wasn't the best, right? We were wanted to do it the second time, but I'm happy we came. I'm happy we came. I'm not happy everybody came. One or two gonna be left behind. Left behind. Not everybody, but as people, I'm happy. I'm happy because it is made us who we are. You couldn't divorce any part of the heritage and come on the scene.
And what is an amazing thing is that you look at people and you have no idea how that person here. That's correct. That you, that Chinese.
Chum, CHUNG.
Right? So this is why.
You was the wicked side, good shot. What am I a little bit?
So you see that diversity is present here. And so I wouldn't change it.
A mutual colleague of ours told me recently too that they got Chum in their family too, and she is as black as you can think. And I said, like, family, welcome home.
It really is.
Yeah.
I think if we handle a rival thing, and I do support the call of the PNC for a rival.
I don't see the need for
It's
change.
why change it. I mean, it is one of the historical factors for sure. Yes, person who did arrive before George, on the fifth.
Yeah, that was my sentiment from the very
You know,
beginning.
and it's a lot of respect. It should be,
Yep.
it should be redesignated to accommodate everybody in that home. And so I really support that thought. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think the more we can celebrate our individual heritage and honor that, the easier it's going to be for us to want respect another person's heritage, respect their points of view, and it's going to be easier for the others to really become what they want to share and what.
That's correct, that's correct.
We're heading here, and every generation is going to have to get better. You know, that's like really our children, we should remember our country is not so, visually divided. That's all.
If we do our work,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
as this right now, the divide is rigid as rigid. Right, so we have a lot of work to do together. But as we release the comments this morning, I'm sure that we have comments to be released. As we
Release the comment.
There you go.
Arlington, hey, good morning, I see Desiree Hunter, and they said there was no program yesterday.
Yeah, those are the second.
We know.
Did you guys hear this clearly? So that we think the song is good.
I know we're ahead.
Yes, I think that someone said it, not.
Somebody said check the mics, please.
Yeah. We gotta check on that. We gotta check on that.
It says something as though we are in a tunnel.
Oh, it's echoing, okay. That's
It's-
1 second.
So we are going to check.
Yeah, we're gonna check it out.
Very
It's
good.
just,
So you missed all of that wonderful
Yeah.
conversation.
That's not, we learned to release the comments already.
Yeah.
So
We're gonna try
guys,
this out.
confirm if you're hearing us. They're saying you're hearing us. Okay, cool.
We're gonna try this. Yeah, right there. We're gonna try this out.
All right.
All right, guys, we're gonna try this out.
We're working on it right now. Let us know how it is as we
Mhm.
go along. Let us know when it gets better.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
rules has a lot of echo.
We're gonna fix that.
So we're gonna try to, it says good morning, Sherry, please check your mic.
We're gonna
Guys,
try it.
we are going to,
Let me try this.
the master
That's really
technician,
good.
the master technician is gonna go and try to fix the sound and you'll let us know. It sounds as if we are at a distance, they're saying.
Okay. It's gonna be fixed pretty soon, guys. You know, our technical officer has just left the table to tend to the business in the background.
Send your rooftop.
In the job.
So let's check the rooftop of the job before.
No, different this morning. Someone says it's better already, so
It's
let's
better,
let's
guys.
get some more feedback on whether or not the clarity is coming in.
Good morning, FYI family, BBI in the house. Clifton Sepple says, good morning to the FYI family. What a great team, respected manners. Thank you. It's 5 a.m. in Arizona. So glad to wake up you guys, Osmond says. Thank you, Osmond. And Beatrice Selby says,
Good morning.
Good morning, Beatrice.
We just have a conversation of our own.
Over
Good
over.
morning,
Mr. Joe.
We're not seeing any journal.
Who is saying good morning to Chris? Is it Chris?
Guys, let us know how you're hearing us right now. I don't know if you haven't,
It's showing that all systems are go at our end.
yes.
So if you can just indicate to us whether you
I
can hear us clearly, and we'll be happy to,
Morning,
Yes,
Simone
yes.
Crawford. Simone, how are you?
Up. How is the audio? Rod, let us know how
and
you're
Corey,
hearing us.
Onessa Ward, Dean, guys, we need some feedback. as to
Judy, what is
whether-
going on?
As to whether the audio is it up? Is it okay? Do we have it?
All right, guys, we need this feedback so that we can keep
Andrew, let me
going.
know what's going on now. You can hear
Loud
us?
and clear.
Okay.
Whiskey session. Thank you.
Whiskey
Perfect
session.
now. Brian
Loud
says
and clear.
perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
Hey, Warren.
we were having this conversation
Awesome
about,
conversation, I
about
must say.
arrival day. Did you guys get it, or do we have to repeat what we were saying?
It's always something, you know, Michael.
Is
I
the
am
board-
here to save the day.
is the
So-
board-
Here come. Sherry's in the room.
Stay calm,
Sharon
folks.
is the bird.
Good thing the bird. The bird vibes. Bird vibes, guys. Bird
I
vibes.
passed it this morning and
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
what Jared was talking about it maltering.
I'm telling you,
Mhm.
it's
Something is going
maltering.
on
That
about
3,000
maltering.
pound bird? Expensive. Molder?
So, but guys, we were having such an interesting
Yes.
conversation on arrival about
Yes.
arrival day, and we were reflecting on how important it is.
We out there. We loud and
prepping
clear.
prepping for the weekend.
Mhm.
But man
Yeah.
just saying that our conversation on arrival day, how important is this?
It was,
And
yeah.
the appreciation, I look at as I was we were speaking about it, I look at our panel. I was like, we have such distinctly different
Yes.
heritage.
Yeah.
But together we have to come together because as Guyanese, that's our overarching, that's our overarching purpose
Yeah, yeah.
in this place to identify
Absolutely.
as Guyanese.
But you're, the thing is, well, it's not a but. It's a question. What does that mean, though, to
For
be Guyanese?
some
Mhm.
persons, there's not a lot of things I think people identify with, and I think we
Yeah.
need to start with understanding our history to understand who we really are and the appreciation that we need to have for our own path and the pathway of others that shares the
Precisely.
same
And
community as
this
us.
is what we were talking about earlier. We came by diverse means, but we are here. And so, how do we make the best of
Mhm.
all of it? How do we develop that distinctly Guyanese
Mm.
identity?
I think one of the most important thing I'd like to tell people is the fact that yes, it is important for us to understand how we came and all of that. But the fact is, right now, we all have a choice and we choose to stay.
As Sharon said, we there,
Right?
we there.
No, we choose to
We are
stay.
here, we are here.
Yeah.
We choose
are
to
here.
stay. So because we choose to stay and live here, we have to carve out that uniqueness about what our grandchildren will be telling about their
Yeah.
heritage, because we're
Yeah.
creating their heritage.
Yeah.
Like right,
Right?
now, no, and that I think that's a very important point that you raised, Joretta, because Sherwood was referring to the fact that, as successive generations go by, we will see improvement.
Mhm.
I want to suggest that there is a generation of people who seem to be content to drag us back to division.
Mhm.
When you talk to some people and they tell you about some of the exchanges in their families, there's some people who are bent on maintaining
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
that divide and fostering ethnic tension.
There's no
So-
space in my family for that
Yeah,
at all.
You know, if
we
if
don't
if we do it
can't
right,
come wrong with funny.
if we do it right, we can come out stronger. Because I think it's kind of like technology, right? I mean, who wants to go back to dial-up if you got broadband? And our children will grow up not knowing what dial-up was.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
did
watch my son.
CXC with a floppy disk drive.
Floppy.
Yeah.
And
Do
just
you
think
know
how
what
far
that is?
we've
My
come.
daughter would want to be like, what are you talking
Look how far we've
about?
come. You know, I see my son always on his phone, and where he lives, they got 5G. I mean, we only dreaming with 5G, right? Constantly on his phone. And that is just the world in which they live.
Yeah.
They're navigating the world through this medium, right?
Uh-huh.
And that was unheard of. I mean, when I was going to school, I had one child in the whole school with a cell phone. And she was like
Top
the Muhammad's of the day, if you want to.
You all
a
are
comparison.
dating me, man.
One child.
Yeah, people
You
cell
yeah, no,
phone.
nobody.
No,
So, what is that?
Rotary home.
Cell phone is the thing.
Yeah, rotary phone home because you spend it.
44661.
No, but
Listen,
I remember.
I want to remind, we're going down this road. Listen, I want to remind persons when we talk about this, right? There was an actual part in the newspaper, used to be pen pals.
Mhm. No, but if we
But
talk about
persons-
phones, we've been there. I remember having to go with my mother in particular down to GT&T. They used to have an office downstairs of Bank of Guyana to book a call. You have to go and book a call.
Shirley
And go
Gale
back
age. I don't
at 5
know.
o'clock in the afternoon to receive the call.
Shirley Gale age
You
of
understand me?
me.
So look over. Our children grew up in an era where they can't fathom
Can't fathom.
what that is. They
They
cannot
don't
fathom.
know.
And that is what racial division must become in our country. It's like, what?
Like what?
What are you talking about? But we gotta
Yes.
work towards that.
Yes.
We gotta press towards that.
But you
We
know-
gotta fight for it.
You know what's the secret though? Not the secret, but you know what the reality is? is that there is a power class
Mhm.
that thrives on that division.
Mhm.
Let me talk about it
Yeah.
this morning.
Yeah.
There is a power class,
Mhm.
not comprised of one ethnicity,
Mhm.
that thrives on keeping that division intact.
Yeah.
You know, we get into trouble for saying these things, but it's
I don't get in
Yeah.
trouble. I say these
It's
things.
true.
I say these things all the time.
It's true.
The
And
data
so-
is there.
And so when people begin to understand that it is not about ethnicity, that we have a controlling group of elites and it trickles down into keeping the society divided, we're
Yeah.
gonna
Like
wake up as a
like
people.
like anything else. And Amanda, you look at international relations on a daily basis. You know, war is gruesome for some people and traumatic, but it's big business for some
For
other
some
people.
other people.
Just like racial division,
Poverty is big business
right?
for some
You
people.
know, the amount of monies we have poured into poverty alleviation in this country, and we just a couple of weeks, right? And into
750,000.
infrastructure and them kind of stuff, right? But the problem never gets solved because why? Right? Why must you build the road strong if you could go back and next month? I saw a bridge in the area which I live. Within the last year, that bridge was fixed by the NDC. And about 2-3 months ago, they came and break up the whole bridge and put on another bridge.
Oh,
Right? I find that's fascinating in a country like ours.
ridiculous.
Very fascinating.
Where people are struggling to find
Yeah.
3 square meals a day.
Yeah.
And but these are some of the things that we're gonna continue to discuss as
And
as we
Amanda,
go on.
again, let me make the point because we were talking about Jumbie Bird earlier. Right with Jumbie Bird, put down. Those people had paved that whole area.
Yes.
And then they rip it,
Paved the whole area.
take out
nicely.
all the blocks.
Right? And then somebody had a thought, they wake up with a
A
dream.
$10 million thought.
A Jumbie Bird, we can put a jump. They came and they rip up that whole thing.
Yeah.
Wastage.
To put
They put a monstrosity.
that thing up.
Moving on, guys.
Loretta was in the morning trend.
No, I'm not moving forward so quickly. Amanda made a good point, and I have to weigh in on it.
Go right ahead.
Amanda made an excellent point with talking about the class, the division of
Mhm.
class, and I want persons to understand that specifically. Yesterday we celebrated Indian Arrival Day all together, and I want to say that when we speak about this class division in our country, it's very important what you just said. There's a set of people at the very top there that controls the resources of the country. And the majority of the population that is left to struggle, there is no division. You're not separated by the color of your skin or your heritage, your foreparents, and all of that. When it comes to that lower class of persons, right? You all have the same level of suffering when it comes to those persons in that class. Whether your hair straight, whether it's curly, whether it's wavy, whether you're brown, whether you're darker, whatever it be. When you are in that particular class, you need to understand that you should not be seeing any line of division, because when you go into the homes of persons, they have the same issues. They're still struggling to send their children to school. They're still struggling to make ends meet. Lots of them don't have access to basic things, electricity, potable water, and all of those things. Those are the things that we need to understand. We have to fight against this system of racism in our country, and we got to talk about it, right? We have to talk about it. So if we got to talk about it every day, we will, because it's a sore issue for me.
Part of the challenge we're talking earlier about understanding your identity, and we're the people who came from all over the place. And it's using that as fuel and not as ammunition to say, this is why I don't like these people, because look what they do to us.
But you didn't do anything to anybody.
We fighting some battles.
I didn't do anything to anybody,
old.
Exactly.
Right?
But you see, and this is what makes our discussions always so intriguing. Because you can go mention 400 years, and I will have to say that while we're not fighting the battles of 400 years, there's a conditioning present.
It brings us
one of
that brings forward the scars.
That is emblematic of that
I think part of it is because if you think about it, we were slaves longer than we've been free. And so we're still in that period of coming out of that. But my perspective is not to use it as a crutch and as an excuse necessarily, right? We are light years away from where slavery was. If you think about it, the opportunities to vote and to just open the door and go there, that freedom our ancestors didn't know. And so who are we to sit down and say, oh, because of I ain't like this other race, or this is why I have not advances yet. We got tremendous opportunities that are happening every day if only you would look for it.
Yeah.
If only you
Sharon,
would
I
look for
can't
it.
disagree with you on that particular view at all, because notwithstanding that this trauma is present in our genetics in different ways. I learned, I love to read, and so one of the things that we were looking at is hacking. You develop hacks. How do you develop shortcuts and hack things so that you get results faster and so on? That what you're talking about is literally re-engineering how you think, how you operate deliberately.
Yeah.
You see, it takes a deliberate effort because your default mode is always reflective of the trauma. So it comes back to what we talk about, living intentionally, doing things intentionally, because when you go into default mode, all of your generational trauma begins to show up. But that's another story.
But let me show you how current that could be for us, because we have a system here that says you can't appear on NCN because of your political beliefs. You can appear on DPI because of your political beliefs. You can appear in Chronicle. We can talk about Chronicle just now, by the way, because of your political beliefs. But we hack the system, and we say, "Oh, you think that's so?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We ain't gonna let her keep
we
you
come
down.
on social media.
We ain't gonna let her keep you down. We out here.
We there.
I mean, you could sit down and say, "Oh God, nobody from Chronicle and calling me for interview. Them people from DPI, they set over so." Or
I love that.
You could innovate.
I love that.
you could innovate.
I love that.
I
What
see
what did they
Anne-Marie.
say?
I see Anne-Marie Roberts placed a comment and she said, "Yeah, times are so hard right now as a single parent." And I
It
think
is.
I read that comment and I can say that I understand I understand what you're saying. I understand to
And
the
I'm telling
core
you,
of the
I
issue.
don't think, and that's why we were talking about that thing that is seething there right below the surface.
Yeah.
I don't think them boys understand.
Yeah.
Look, I missed a neighbor the other day. Just over it's not the weekend, just over the
Yes,
holiday here. And I was inquiring, and then I learned my neighbor moved. And when I was talking about what was your reason? Money too much.
Yeah.
Right?
Can't
Because you gotta look for
afford
a
it.
cheaper place.
Mm.
You understand me? And not because they want to, the economics. Right? You're supposed to be improving, not going down. You understand? With that kind of opulence we have out there that our foreparents left to us, that's the challenge
the
that we have.
patrimony that we have that is
That's
now
it, that's the
reflective
challenge.
in our GDP.
That's the challenge.
How are we getting
That's the
it
challenge
to
that we
the
have.
ordinary man?
What's the introduction to the program this
I
morning?
mean, we
23
didn't
minutes in.
plan this, Jules.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
Donald McDowell and Clarine James and Tanika and Joel, and that's one of the things we were saying. I mentioned a book, and let me get it. 1 second more. We were talking about on the last program that I thought was so instrumental to me. And
Sharon has lots of books. You have no idea, people. Sharon have lots of books. Just bring them. We're gonna just sip it out.
Because if you want to talk about understanding in a meaningful way, and again, we didn't plan this.
Look,
These some books lying around when it comes to this one was instrumental.
Yes.
Because
this one's a survey of Guyanese history.
This talks about the people who came from so many different places, and the historical nature of where we came from, why we came. I mean, there's a chapter in this book that really revolutionized my thinking in terms of slavery. This is by Professor
our own Dr.
McDonough.
Winston McGowan.
Yes.
Winston McGowan, fascinating historian. And one of the things he was saying is that there's a school of thought that says Africans didn't resist slavery; they were willing. Some people would even argue that we came for our betterment.
Oh wow!
And when he challenges that in a tremendous essay in this a survey of Guyanese history by saying that in every step of the way, from the time they were forced to board those ships, they resisted slavery.
If you recall, some people jumped overboard.
And they were chained together, and
I
persons
didn't
jumped
realize
together.
it. I didn't even realize there were so many ways in which Africans resisted. It was never accepted.
Right.
We never came for betterment. It was never accepted. I mean, and you know, there's that. And then I found this other fascinating one. I mean, if you want to get in touch with how we arrived here, this is a fantastic other historian, Kamani Nehusi, fascinating guy. Again, this is the people's political history of Guyana, and I bought all these at my favorite bookstore. This is one. This is one that really changed my thinking. And this is one of the seminal texts you'll ever read in Caribbean history: Capitalism and Slavery.
Yes, by the great Eric
Capitalism
Williams
and Slavery.
of Trinidad.
And I've read this a couple of times over, and one of the things this informed me is that while racism was an outcome of slavery, slavery wasn't because of racism. And Dr. Eric Williams, who was the former Prime Minister of Trinidad, and like David Granger, was a historian by training, has a fantastic thesis and showing you how slavery was economics, plain and simple.
Pure and simple. And this is
Pure
why.
and simple economics.
And that is why
reparations was given to the plantocracy and not to the enslaved. You see, you have to be a special kind of person to attempt to rewrite history and to misrepresent the experience of our African ancestors on the sugar estates. So for you to suggest that it was a willing entity that they were complicit in, it's disturbing.
Yeah.
It's very, very disturbing, and it is dishonorable to the sacrifice and to their memories and to their fortitude, because we are here. And I highly recommend that you read these books, because what you will begin to see is that we like I said in an address that I made once, we are still reaping the bitter harvest of some seeds planted very long ago.
Correct.
Because when those Indian immigrants came off of the Hesperus and the Whidbey, they were sick, they were seasick, some of them were seriously ill, and they were bound up and nursed back to health by African slaves. So, but we don't teach that. We operate now, and there are few who continue to push the narrative that it has always been that way. It hasn't always been that way. These seeds were sown at the end of slavery. And what they began to do as well was to begin to create a difference in terms of economics. So you had slaves who were now free men, but were not allowed to have capital. They had to buy villages. Whereas you had indentured servants or indentured laborers who, when their time of contract was up, they were given land and money. So we have to talk about these things, because it's very easy to look down on a class of people and to say, well, y'all not do it. But you have to understand the historical
We started from different starting points.
We started from different
starting
starting
that is
points.
why that's why I think I touched a few buttons when I was speaking about the fact. I think I touched a few buttons when I was talking about the fact that a lot of times we look at persons, especially when the young Black men, on that person would say, oh, have this stereotype to them a lot of times, and so on and so forth. And we look at the situations in which a lot of them are involved in petty crimes and things like that. And so you have to understand what got them there, the cycle of poverty and this conditioning in a society that they were brought up in altogether. And I think some persons thought like I was trying to defend a type of lifestyle, but I am well read to the point that you have to look beyond the surface to actually understand the root cause of certain issues if we actually want to move forward as a people. Because if we want to move forward, these little things, you may say that you can't separate yourself. We're less than 1 million people in this country, and everything that we do interlink so much, right? So if somebody is not doing well, and it affects the other persons that believe that they are immune to that situation.
One of the things that we always caution on this program is, while you cannot guarantee outcome,
you can't.
So equity of outcome, I don't support that. Equity in terms of opportunities, however, is a different thing.
Yes.
What I make of the opportunity that I have is a different issue. So the role of government in this is to create an equitable society
Yeah.
where there's equitable distribution of our resources,
Mhm.
where there's equitable distribution
Equitable
of
access to
Access.
the
And
resources. I think
and in some
that's the
instances-
main issue.
absolutely.
In some
Is the
instances too.
accessibility, access share. I think people don't. That's not a concept that we utilize as much as we should. But access to opportunity it is everything. It means
Absolutely.
everything.
Because that's
It
the only
makes
way you
no
participate
sense.
in the
It
system.
makes no sense that you're saying we have these things here when somebody till hell's way in the outerland regions and so can't access that resource. Access
And
to
that
the
is-
equitable provision of resources is a big issue altogether.
That's relevant, very relevant when you consider co-op societies that are being taken over now
Yes, with
by
the
the government for specific
IMCs.
purpose. You have the Linden Entrepreneurial Network that had a specific focus to empowering people that has been shut down and not been funded. And so these things serve a purpose to empower people, to bring more people out of the lower class into the middle class, and hopefully, as you say, you're exposed to more opportunities, and you
Right.
decide whether how high you want to
if
go.
you make it or
But we
not.
got to empower people,
Mhm.
right? We got to empower people.
But the
What's in it? Yeah.
The last thing I want to say before we move, but before we go into our actual content for this morning, is the fact that one of the books you have spoke about capitalism and slavery, and I want to say that it's very important for us to be able to look back where we came from as a country. And I said we because this is Guyana, I'm Guyanese, so this is where we came from, and that's how I look at it, right? And it's absolutely necessary for us to look back, especially when it comes to things like that, capitalism and slavery, and to look at the similarities that you may be seeing right now in today's society when capitalism is being used and the way in which the structure that is set up to have a people in a certain lifestyle altogether
So you're basically
today.
saying that it has changed its guise, but
That is what I'm
it's a whole
saying.
different discussion.
But that is what but that is what I'm saying, and I can go and I can end that part by saying that when we go back, we will understand when it comes to that specific concept. We have to go back to classism and the separation of the classes, and then we're going to realize that everybody in that struggle, once you are within that lower class,
you're
right
absolutely
now.
right, because if you read Williams and you read the other guys, you find out that sugar didn't fail in the West Indies because of a managerial issue. Sugar failed because it was no longer profitable.
Correct.
Right? And sugar failed in London, and so it failed other places. There were cheaper forms of sugar, and so they no longer needed sugar from other places.
Yes.
And that is why what happened,
The economics of the thing.
what's going to happen sooner or rather than later, just that we didn't want to listen to that.
There's a different sugar now, isn't it?
When our country, Amanza, was the number one producer of cotton in the world, that money didn't use here, right?
All of it.
On the heyday of Guyana producing sugar, right? That money wasn't used to develop this country here, right? And so and that's why we argue that we're all starting from different directions. But again, this is a topic that we can talk, for the next year about, but it's a needed
maybe
discussion.
we should.
It's a needed
in
discussion.
terms of keeping it going on
It's a needed discussion.
program.
Just not one day about
you can,
arrival, because it is such it's a persistent thing we carry with us all the time. All of these experiences
every day.
of who we are and where we came from and why. It reminds me again of Antoinette in White Sargasso Sea. I often wonder, who I am and who are my people.
You shared nothing.
I know a couple of things.
Shirt is
I know a
well
couple of
read.
things.
You
I know a
have
couple of
no
things.
idea.
But that being said, folks, here are some of the things half an hour into the program that are making the morning papers.
Well, we're looking at the morning papers, and again, I have to say we're going to start off on this very sad note. The driver dies, 2 children injured in a Windsor Forest accident. And guys, this is a 27-year-old driver is now dead after losing control of his vehicle and crashing into a concrete bridge along the Windsor Forest public road, and that was yesterday morning, Thursday morning. We continue.
Is he a military person?
We
Because
continue to plead with you guys.
I see a military uniform.
I am not sure. I think I would not be able to say at this point in time.
Either is or was.
Is or
One
was.
to the two.
Okay.
But again, the challenge here is the absolute carnage happening in our roads, because we did an extensive piece of research on May alone. We had a lot of carnage, And we were finished with this. We thought we were finished
We thought.
about the 28th, 29th day of April when we looked at accidents in April. And we were hours before midnight on April 30th putting together that piece. On April 30th, around 11:55, there was an accident on at Better Hope, a hit and run.
Hit and run.
You know,
Yeah.
at Better Hope, and then May 1st, you had another accident involving the squash player,
yeah.
right? That died,
Mhm.
and now this. So this is how the month started already. Total recklessness on the road. You know, a guy. This is May 1st. Jumped the traffic light at the St. John Road by that traffic
Yeah.
light there by the army base.
Yeah.
And you know, this squash player lost his life as a
His
result
life, yeah.
of that. And then you have this
Yesterday.
accident now, where 2 children were involved in this recent one
Injured.
yesterday.
And the
Right.
driver died.
That is a challenge we're dealing with, and we talk about this so often here because we got to change our that. We got to change our actions.
Mhm.
We have to.
We have to.
No.
We have to have
It's. I don't know. if
Dire
there's anything
consequences.
else that
Yep.
we can say to implore people: take your time,
Mhm.
slow down,
Mhm.
arrive alive,
Yeah.
exercise the 5 C's.
Mhm.
Just show some awareness
Yeah.
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
is not you alone
And-
using the
and-
road.
the
Well,
consequences. The
Rita,
consequences.
Yeah, see by the jumpy board. Oh Lord, confusion. Oh,
Man, to navigate that wrong.
the directions you got for looking before you venture
You,
over
you know
that.
the crazy thing is that I noticed that there's usually a traffic officer standing there, but he looks more confused than the drivers.
drivers themselves. No, it's very, very
Confusion
serious.
powder.
So yield. People don't understand yield, what it
Yes.
means.
Mhm. But if it's upside down, we mightn't get a full appreciation. If the yield sign upside down.
Upside down. And so
I can't read it at all.
we have to do our
Yeah.
part. We
Yeah.
just gotta arrive alive, man.
Yeah.
Too many people are losing their lives senseless.
So that's one thing to
Consequences
follow.
need to be
Yeah.
had. Let me just say consequences. That's my thing. You know, you
Yeah.
you speeding and those things should not just be a slap
but
slap on the
in this
wrist. Nope.
case, he dead. So
Yep.
I mean, he
Yep.
left a family, and this is you leave a lot of distress behind.
But it
you.
seems as though if you kill somebody, dangerous driving or something like that, you know, the worst that happens is you pay a fine and then you're gone with your license.
Even when
in
it comes to
hand.
the buses and so, I think this.
It depends on the circumstances of the case.
But the man said
Because it might have been an accident per se.
Mhm.
yes.
Now there are differences when there's negligence and there's
Mhm.
recklessness.
Yeah.
Those elements matter. So it really does turn on the circumstances of the case.
But even when it comes to the buses and when persons die there, I think that this whole it's a structure that needs to be looked at in totality, because when you look, you have to look at the insurance aspect of it and how much money is actually being paid out by those persons that cause the death of persons and so forth. When it comes to buses, and because it's just a slap on the wrist, just park the money, give, and then the bus on the road again.
Their premiums go up.
No, you know, exactly. The
Yes.
insurance structure and all that, because I can assure you, if somebody got a fork with a $10 million, if they hit down somebody, child, and kill them, then
We can
it
dive
didn't just
into
go like
one.
that, you know?
We have to be more
Departmental
careful.
on the
We got to be
road.
more
You know?
careful. We got to. In all segments and sections of our country, we have to be more careful.
we
Well,
have
let's see
to.
the more quick.
Yes, well, another thing I just want to make mention of, since we've been talking about the fact that yesterday was Indian Arrival Day, I want to make mention of the fact that yesterday was also GPHC also celebrated the Midwife Day. You know, it's more international. I just want to say that we, especially me as a woman, being giving birth to 2 children myself, you know,
Respect and manners.
man too, you know,
Respect and
no
manners.
medication, nothing, just saying.
Respect to manners.
Yeah.
We have a distinct appreciation for the work that midwives do. They continue to save lives every day, and also bring babies into the world safely. So
Well, believe it
we
or not,
celebrated also.
Kudos.
the midwife who delivered me many years ago on a Saturday gave me my name. Believe it or not.
Seriously?
And quite strangely, it was a book she was reading.
Wow.
Ah,
No wonder
that's
you were like this
Yeah, and
bookworm
I'm in
right
touch.
now.
I'm in touch with
You're in
her
touch
still.
with her.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So midwives rule the world.
I know the midwife who
The midwife
delivered
who
me
delivered
myself. You know,
me.
it's just crazy that we know these
It's
people
long
personally.
gone.
Mhm.
I can't.
You can get a different. You live different.
Just let's say when I was born,
Yeah,
hospital
yeah.
and so
Gotta get
was
my-
the thing.
Gotta get my first,
We
my
born
first
home.
tested.
Born home. I was born at
It's
home.
At
nice,
home?
it's nice.
I was born at
But-
home.
but that's-
Hospital.
That is
No,
by
but that
choice
speaks to the
or
professionalism too. It speaks to the
What by
know-how. It
choice?
speaks to, or you what was that?
In the countryside where
Mhm.
I was born and where I came from, midwives where the order of the day is either the midwife or you had an old villager
Yep, the
Mhm.
elder.
that
Mhm.
But
used to
believe it or
come
not,
and
that
be
is still practiced now, you
and
know.
be what we call today the birthing coach, and they got a big fancy term, was it? The doula.
Yeah.
You didn't know, but that was cousin Dora and so on.
Mhm.
When you're pregnant and you're ready to think.
But
You know,
come out too
strange
bad.
enough,
You
strange,
come out too bad.
come
Even
out
if you
too
fall down, what? If you fall down.
strange
But
enough, you know, there's this new phenomenon, this new experience of so many places right now that you have birthing centers, you know, being set up, and specifically for women to go and
But I
give
think
birth.
it's a
Persons that
beautiful
don't want to
experience.
be in the hospital, you may want your family, your husband, your kids
Yeah.
there with you, more natural ways of giving birth and so on. So that's a whole
But I know in
different.
Trinidad, because my big son was born in Trinidad, if it's not your first child, they can come home and do it. And you can have the baby home.
If it's not your first child.
If it's not your first
Okay,
child.
so they-
you know, but that's how confident they are in their system.
Yeah.
You know, you can the midwife can come home
Yeah.
and they can, and I guess it's an ease too from the from the healthcare system. The other thing too, I was very impressed when my last son was born a year and a half ago. And the name of the room was the birthing room, and I was invited to go in and did go in. All right, it was a whole exorcist kind of thing. No, I didn't fit. When I saw that ball here, right there, that big head, I said, "This is my child." This is my child. But it's a beautiful experience. Beautiful experience. I would say, fathers, you
Go
know,
do it. Go do it.
do it. You
Wow,
got it. You got
wow.
it. When you see
I don't
that
know. I
in
don't know,
there,
man. I don't know if I want. I
right?
don't know if I want
When you
anyone in
I
there.
see when you beat you Chinese, I see how you come in this world. You think you give me root this? I was there the day you gave you under the pressure. Understand? My wife was different. No, my wife was different that day. I didn't recognize that girl. 2 times I didn't recognize my wife. That day, when her grandmother died at the funeral, I didn't recognize my wife.
Wow.
I see who's this person. Right?
You know, persons have different
different.
threshold. Persons have
Yeah.
different threshold. I remember specifically when I was giving birth to my daughter. You know, the doctor came in and he was doing a check and stuff, and the nurse said, because you know, persons. We're gonna go into a little bit of this conversation, but you know, they usually say that you have to go to 10 cm to give birth to a child naturally. The doctor came in and the nurse said, "Oh, well, she's 8 cm." And the doctor said, "What?" And she's sitting there so quiet. But people, let me tell you, I have a different threshold for pain, and I learned that with actually
Well,
giving
in
birth to my
politics,
children. I have a different threshold for pain.
Maybe this is why she's
Manza, I swear to you, you could pass the living room with me in it, and you could hear a pin drop, dead silent.
But
I do
what
not
was
even
fascinated
understand
by- What I
myself.
was fascinated by, I mean, this is the most intense time of our lives, you know, as man and wife, my wife and I in that birthing room. And the nurse is just having a jolly time, you know. I mean, not like it's, you know, like when
They have
you know
done
you want
this.
if the plane is in distress, you look to the pilot, you say a word there. I'm looking at them and I,
like, okay,
right?
and you're pulling,
But
you
that
didn't
was
have hair.
that
but
was
you
the
were-
fascinating part to me. Is when without even consulting me, you know, like Judah, my wife wasn't fully there with all these CMs and so on, and they just cut her like it was tapping me. I'm thinking like I gotta use this stuff after today, you know.
As we move on, folks. As we move on to the
But everybody big head child. I said, "This is my child. This is my child.
we have
Here's some
all,
power."
you know, but interesting enough to note, we all
Yeah.
as women
Beautiful experience.
has gone through that. I just want to put
I
personally,
watch-
no,
I watch this
everyone.
little for raccoon when they run tail up my books. I was like, you know, if I bother with you, but what we got for? Let's say about it, people. It's Friday, TGIF. If y'all gotta do other things, we sorry. We out here. We out here. We out here. If you find me drinking too much tea, be sorry. You understand me? I've been through some stuff 400 years. I love me 2 cups of tea. Please and thank you. You understand me? Sometimes you not go rational at all. If I want to drink 2 cups of tea, you know, I asked my mother, child, you know, my mother said, like you buying this milk, put milk in this tea. If I want me 2 cups of tea, like drink me 2 cups of tea, then I go down the road.
I brought my
Oh.
kids for a purpose.
We have vexes me if I get 2 cups of tea. Shucks. Me ain't got no man shall allow me 2 cups of tea at least. You know, for the start of the day.
Not maybe all you have it today.
Please and thank you. My God, move out alone already. Allow me 2 cups of tea. The final hoorah. Final hoorah. Yeah. What else we got? What
As
else
I
we
bring
got?
back some focus.
We
to
just
this
different, we
discussion.
programs, we just different. We don't follow no more, we just we want y'all, we okay. we there. Moving on. What's anybody papers?
Okay,
It's a
so
slow morning.
I want us to just we always talk about the integration. That's why we always look at what's going on internationally. And one of the things that is very disturbing to me is that I'm picking up is in Delhi, India, a 13-year-old girl told the police she was gang raped, and then a police officer allegedly raped her.
Wow. Well, we're picking up the pace now.
Right? So
Yep.
that definitely is these are things we need to be concerned with throughout. You were saying a 13-year-old girl is talking about being gang raped. A lot of persons that, if you were like me and you've been following international news, you're going to know that when it comes to these issues, I think Delhi, India has had several cases that met the international stage when it comes to young ladies being raped and more so the conversation being had in that they probably were in the wrong place at the wrong time and should not have been there and all of that. So we know this is 2022, and when it comes to advocacy, we need to advocate for women throughout the length and breadth of this world. Something happening to a little girl in India like that is a concern to everyone, every woman, every person, because that should not be. We should not be in 2022 on this earth having to deal with these issues, but we still do. And it's just a grave reminder how far we have to go as a people in combating these ills.
I mean, where are women safe?
Women still struggling.
Where are you safe?
Women
Because
still
you're
struggling.
supposed to go to the police, and that is supposed to be the place that you are given recourse to justice. So where do you run to? Where do you go to if going to the police to complain about rape and you end up being raped?
We had a situation like that right here, Turkine police station. One, two, you had West Indies cricketer Versamy Parmal. His mom lost her life recently. Thoughts and prayers with that family. According to the father, they're separated, living in the same house still, for a couple of months. And he passing by her bedroom window and heard her talking with, they saw the guy she's seeing, and he took offense of that. And, an argument ensued, and that's what happened.
Wow.
Another fellow in the interior quite recently, he said, they found this woman mangled. I can't remember what was her name. And then he said, when he confessed to killing her, he said they had unfinished business, quote unquote. So we got a long way to go. But as we've said, a lot of these issues, it got to be led from the front. Can't lead from the back. Can't lead from the side.
Which is why Nigel Darmlal should not be in the National Assembly.
That is correct.
Which is why I'm very disappointed that Irfan Ali would. And I think we have dropped the ball in advocacy for this issue, and I'll say that up front. I think more pressure ought to be brought to bear on Nigel Darmlal.
I'm not done with it.
You see, one of the things that we have to appreciate that the rot starts from the head. And so while he may say something so outrageous, the other person will take it a step further and a step further and a step further, which is why it's important that as in government, you model a respect for law and order, because you have no control over the cascading effects. So it is something that we have to continue advocacy for women and the rights of women and the protection of women. And it begins not by telling a woman, oh, she should wear it, she should wear that. That is one aspect of it. How are you teaching your boys to respect a woman's right to say no, to respect a woman's right not to want to be touched? So it has to be there has to be a balanced approach to this thing. We have to teach our men self-control.
Definitely. Definitely.
So there's that.
But there's so many groupings I could say at this point that has been up and functioning when it comes to women's rights and leadership and all of those things. Persons that advocate for the protection of women and girls. I know Spotlight has been doing a lot of work when it comes to this particular aspect when it comes to gender-based violence and those things against women and girls. And I think the distinction being made between women and girls, that one that's absolutely important, and Spotlight has made that distinction. So we have to do our part, make sure that from our homes we teach our daughters and our sons how to act, both men and women, as they go on out into this world, and how they should control, practice restraint and all of those things and be safe altogether. And one of the things, another thing that we're looking at, when it comes to the regional news, we're looking at coming out here, we're seeing licensed firearm holders should not be public knowledge, says Parliament committee members, right? And this specific story taken from Jamaica Gleaner, that said members of a joint selection committee reviewing the firearm Prohibition and Restriction Regulations Act 2022 today shut down a recommendation for the firearm licensing authority to make accessible to the public the names of licensed firearms holder in their community. And I'm reading it because when it comes to matters that affects the parliament in Jamaica and so forth, we need to be looking at these things in depth.
We're
Also,
interconnected
we
in
are
this sense.
interconnected.
Very
This
much so in this
specifically,
sense. Very much so.
I understand. I'm not too clear where Aisha would stand on this because I understand the concerns about making those names public of a licensed firearm
Depends on the
holders.
society in which we live in.
Good, and I also
know?
understand why persons may want it to be made public also. So I understand from
we
both
got a high crime
sides.
level, but I don't think we're at that.
Yeah,
level.
I don't support.
They
I
got
don't
some
support
challenge.
making it public at all.
Yeah, because then persons coming by, they come with a different level of force, or you got to
Exactly.
license
And not
firearm.
only that, it makes it vulnerable because people rob you all the time and take away your firearm and so on. So
Yep.
I understand why they would come to that conclusion.
Yeah, I understand why they're asking for it too, given so many things in the headline there as well. So
And you know what
we
else
get
in
it from
headline?
both
We have a
sides.
visitor coming or here, right?
Well, Shada's gonna
Today-
walk us
is
through
he
that
here?
bit.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
he here?
But we
foreign
weren't
relations-
invited. We weren't invited.
Foreign relations is a man's forte. Is it Jair Bonasaro?
Yeah.
Right? Our neighbor just some.
And he was
Angle.
supposed to have been here some time ago.
Yeah, it didn't work
but
out so well.
His mom passed, I think.
Yes,
the
that
trip
is
was
correct.
Cancelled. and
Hopefully the second
He's
coming.
here today. I'm interested in seeing, what comes out of it. Because the question continues to be, what are the deliverables that come
Yeah.
out of these meetings? You had, what's his name here, the other
Yeah.
day, the president of Suriname.
And we are going to talk about this, believe it or not,
Yeah.
as our big issue this morning.
Good.
But he's here, he's coming, he's
here. Let's see where it goes. If
Let's
it's
see
just
where it
another
goes.
photo
He got
op,
his
or
own
we will
challenges.
he has
He has his
serious
own challenges at home, heading to an election.
Serious
His
challenges at home.
own bundle of
So,
issues.
It'll be
Basket of
interesting
issues.
to see.
Everything bundle basket. Yeah, bundle and a basket.
Guys are
It'll
more
be
familiar
interesting
with
to
the
see
basket.
the outcome.
Yep,
It'll be
yep.
interesting to see the outcome.
Yep. So that's happening on that, and he could be toast this election. It
It could be.
because Lula's
But
coming
is that-
back.
is
But we're
that
going to
why
talk
you
about
put
that.
it to-
Yes.
We're
Go
gonna-
ahead,
we're gonna
Shard.
talk
Go
about
ahead.
it,
Go
Shard.
ahead.
Like the press
Yeah.
association.
But then
yeah,
listen, we
sorry.
be little thing. But looking at talking about feasibility studies, I'm thinking we can all the time. Over the last 72 hours, the government, the regime, signed this contract for the Quarantine River Bridge,
Mhm.
and it's interesting. It's very interesting what quarantine, what is entailed in this contract. Let me grab something quick while the graphic is up. What's in the contract as part of the stipulation amounts? I think you're going to be very, very interested in that.
Yes.
Because we don't subscribe to that so much here.
Right.
In the past, this whole issue of the environmental impact
Impact
assessment
assessment.
has been a big thing. But it's interesting to hear what the counterpart for what's his name? Suriname had to say about it. What's the fellow's name? Our fella here. The good bishop.
Jill.
Yeah, his counterpart in Suriname. It's interesting to hear what they had to say about this. Of course, this bridge, they're looking for a PPP, not the party, but the private.
Public-private partnership model.
Same thing.
Yes.
And the justification. Oh, here I have it. And so they're talking about how's it gonna go through that for us? They're talking about why is it necessary? And the guy said that this bridge that they're building, folks, is going to resemble one of the bridges that they have there in Brazil. And he says, here is what in Suriname, sorry, I'm thinking about Bonasaro. He said that this here will entail a lot of studies along with a preliminary design of the bridge. The counterpart, one Keys Buenda, he is the assistant for capital infrastructure projects. he says that those studies are to get a better insight into all aspects of the bridge, because later on we have to make a deal, right? This public-private partnership deal, and it's better to have all the details known to you, all the financial ins and outs to be investigated, to lower the risk, and to get a better public-private partnership deal.
Now, you know what is interesting here?
A couple of things, man.
Oh.
So let's start.
You
You can
know
start.
yeah.
what's interesting here?
Tell us, Manza.
No,
Tell me what's
look at it.
interesting.
They, and you know the PPP government, they know who they could carry their crap to. And this is where Guyanese, we have to wake up and to understand that we cannot continue to collect
Correct.
the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you not have have the study, have
the
the
feasibility
environmental
study.
impact assessment? Could they just dare to suggest to the Surinamese that we can do away with that?
Yeah.
They can't,
Yeah.
because Suriname they have standards and they have ways in which they do things. Home here now, you have Barjack, they'll
What's it comes to
say
do?
you don't need an
Yeah,
EIA. I've
yeah.
never heard something more nonsensical. And Guyanese, simply because he said it.
Yeah.
Same man
Some
that said-
Guyanese. Some.
Guyanese.
Yes.
And simply because this man who said, man who said sugar gun thing with scandal.
It's gonna be great again.
The same man who said
Yeah.
says, oh, we don't need an EIA.
Yeah.
What nonsense. And why would they not push that nonsense to Suriname?
Yeah.
Because they can't. Because anybody with one modicum of exposure understands that an EIA is an integral part of
Yeah.
any major infrastructure project.
And this is what the fellow is saying here. We got to know the ins and outs, right? To lower the risk, right? Because you see, we value our taxpayers' money,
Yeah.
right? We value that. So we got to know all
All
aspects
of the
of it,
aspects.
right? To get better insight to all aspects of the bridge, so that later on, right, we can make the best deal we can make. And that's what we want.
But one of the things I just want to point out at this point in time is that when we're speaking about all of these things, people need to understand altogether what is done here. You know, why is it so important to have this data right now? And I want to actually just reflect on something that Dr. Adams was making a point, even with the fishermen, that was saying that their catches has reduced significantly and all of that. And he was making a point of that. How do you move forward to even to even seek compensation for them when these studies are not done? So you don't know the baseline at which you were starting off at. Where did it begin? There's no data, and this is a whole aspect of doing these studies to provide the data so that persons can actually understand. So moving forward in the future, whatever changes is made environmentally to persons' economic livelihood and all of those things, a better understanding and more so figures. This is about numbers. Let's not just move away from that. This is about numbers and allocating a cost altogether as to what was before and what is in the future, and to say if any compensation for anything should be made and done
if you look
down the
further,
line.
it says that they're now mandated to conduct geotechnical tests, studies, topographical assessment, hydraulic and hydrographic and morphological studies, traffic demand and traffic projects, forecasts, financial and economic evaluation. So
It's about numbers.
This is what proper development looks like.
But and look, by contrast, you know, as we on feasibility studies and we're talking about EIAs with that, we've been tracking that at our end too. And part of what we're seeing is that the demand for EIA seem to be the exception than the rule.
Yes.
Right? Yes. It seems to be the exception than the rule, because when we look, for instance, at the New Harbor Bridge, them boys say we don't need no EIA. And this is all what we talk about, breaking down the guardrails, you know. These people want the best for their citizens, the best for the taxpayers, and the best deal. We don't have that kind of outlook here. So we don't need one for the New Harbor Bridge. The oil exploration for the Kanji Block, we don't need one for that, right? They propose the oil and gas waste treatment at Coverdale. We need one for that neither, right? They propose Marriott. You see that they launch it, they start building in June. They're saying create 400 jobs. Oh, 400 jobs, but then we don't need the EIA for that. You understand me? So this Marriott branded hotel that's going down at Ogle, we don't need one for that. The 12 exploration oil campaign at the Kaicho Block, we don't need one for that neither. Right? There was a company that they're going somewhere, either the East Coast or East Bank, Superior Concrete Company. Where it's going there, this could be hazardous to the environment, to health, to all of that. They don't
No
need no
EIA.
EIA for that either.
Mm.
But then again,
Waste
Amanda,
facility at Houston.
waste facility at Houston. These are the folks who said they were going to come and they were going to review the PSA for ExxonMobil. That's what they campaign on. And then they came in and they realized, we don't really need that anymore to review the PSA, right? And the gas to short whales has been a major headache. Just like you've outlined all of these studies that the Story said they're putting together as part of their due diligence, right? The experts said the gas to shore project needs a purpose-built feasibility study. Then by said,
no.
what name, sir?
Look, but you see, and
What name, sir?
this continues to be
What
an
name, sir?
issue. Because you know what it suggests? That we could just dangle shiny things in front of Guyanese
Correct.
and get away with it.
Correct.
And we have to begin
This
to
is bothering
demand
me.
more. We have to begin to demand more. We have to look at what is the best use, as you've rightly said, of taxpayers' dollars. So, for example, if you're going to build a bridge at the New Demerara Harbor Bridge, what is the design of the bridge? Okay, vehicles are going to use the bridge. Is it elevated? If it's elevated, it will mean that it has implications for emissions and people who may be living below the level of the bridge, depending on how high it is. And EIA has to bring that out.
But we have a head of state who says, I ain't really studies, but I know.
It's a no-brainer.
It's not going to affect nobody. It's going to be a good bridge. It's going to be a good bridge. It's gonna be a good bridge.
There's nothing
Right?
that is done that does not that doesn't change the environment and the way in which and the people that depends directly on that
Absolutely.
environment. So
Yeah.
there's absolutely not that.
They can build
like
a
that.
bridge. They can build a bridge that, can make all bridge look thing by comparison. It might be- But the Surinamese got a different way.
They have a different
way.
But that's because you see, we have to study the Surinamese culture and their government.
Mhm.
Suriname does not have as much as a sharp race problem, If you study Suriname politics, very few people get the power unless it's a coalition arrangement. So they do not have that very defined down the middle ethnic enclave that we have. And so
their concern is policy.
So they're concerned. You're absolutely right. It's
You better conform.
You better come right.
You better come right.
Right?
Don't come wrong in front.
So so that is what you get resulting. People who understand development, who understand how development should happen, and who are just not interested in, squandering taxpayers' money.
Yeah. That being said, folks, my first cousin, German Figuera, just won a lawsuit against Chronicle. We are first cousins. Did you know that?
I wasn't aware.
Won this lawsuit here. I think the amount they were asking for was $900 million. We first cousins. First cousins. German felt that Chronicle MP German Figuera, the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, felt that Chronicle had libeled him in one of their stories. He took them to court, and he won.
The court agreed.
Yep.
Court agreed.
They are to meet later this month to determine what is going to actually be
Quantum of damages.
the quantum of damages.
Yep.
Yeah, like that.
We don't know.
Not quantum of solace. Damages.
That's damages.
Not solace for
Quantum
Chronicle.
of damages.
Yeah.
Yes, and German is a young MP, and I must say that serious consideration must be given on every aspect.
My
As
cousin
a
German,
young member of parliament, his
Yeah.
aspirations
Could
is
be
as
president
far
one
as
day.
that is exactly.
Could have been
No, but
severely prejudiced.
and
by
especially
those
if he had planned to be in politics to run
Yeah.
for office of president someday,
Absolutely.
My
what
cousin-
is the actual damage done
My
to
cousin
that?
German could be president. You can imagine that. Hope your Alan style is good name. People wouldn't go to the ballot now and all that. And,
Yeah.
No,
No, but that is the
There's
whole
so many
reason for those
interesting
lawsuits, because that is why it is,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
persons need not take for granted
Yeah.
your
The importance of
aspirations
people's
and all of that, and
I
the
want
implication that
to keep
comes.
saying I defraud people money.
Outside
Man,
of
Keep talking,
Sharon,
man.
I
Yeah,
am
keep talking, please.
every day I
Please.
wait for Chronicle to
Money
print
got
about the
money
$5
got
million.
to pay for this program, yeah. Money got my Chronicle out. The other my favorite man.
Just print it once,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Go
then
ahead.
they will
Go ahead.
do
Do your
fact
favor.
checking and so on before these libelous things are printed.
Yeah.
Speaking of fact checking
Yes.
and limited black applicants.
Myself.
GPA, sir?
GPA yesterday was what's happening?
Savage.
What's
GPA
happening?
was savage. And I understand, I
Yeah.
understand. Like I
Right.
read all of them that they said and I understood where they were coming from.
Absolutely.
We
But it
understand
makes me
completely.
wonder though.
Mhm.
I don't know if we have it. Some of the stuff the GPA went through in
Mm.
terms of good journalism.
Mhm.
Clearly, if Chronicle is liable, right, and said something that was libelous, we gotta
Yeah.
wonder about journalism over there,
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
We got to wonder, I think, about journalism on the whole in Guyana and whether you know what stood out to me and what painted a very stark picture for me
Mhm.
as to the standard of journalism. Gail Teixeira made a comment about the IRI poll
Mhm.
and it lacking credibility,
Mhm.
and she referenced provision about consultation with the ethics committee and the
Mhm.
Ministry of Health, and not one article even alluded to what that was,
Mhm.
whether this is so, whether this committee does in fact exist, whether it's constituted. Not one article.
And also, Manzo, who has applied it before and granted permission? Because
So
I
there's
see
no
is there a
research.
Bistram poll that's always in the paper?
Vishnu
Somebody,
Misram,
yeah,
always in the, always
a poll
oh,
that's been conducted here.
has
So one
he
wonders.
applied?
Yeah.
And so that is what distresses me about the level of journalism.
Uh-huh.
I mean, God Mosley and these guys are the exception.
Mhm.
You cannot come away from it with a balanced view.
Yeah.
So now when you read about what Gail Teixeira said, you have to go now research. You
Mhm.
gotta go find out whether this thing exists, because all journalism appears to be now is regurgitating.
Mhm.
There's no edification of the
Yeah.
public.
As a matter of fact, part of the defense, if I read the report right, said that Chronicle was relying on the fact that they had to report, according to them, what MP, what's his name again? Not German.
I know what you're talking about.
Hamilton,
Hamilton.
Joe
Hamilton
Hamilton,
said, right.
who said German was a number of things he described him as.
Right.
And they had to report. And the Chief Justice says, no.
Yeah.
You still have a
Precisely.
duty.
You have a duty to fact check.
Mm.
Because if you're the fact check, you don't know you had a brother named Jermaine and it was probably some kind of
Mm.
mix up and it was not the
Fact check, it
MP,
wasn't him.
but you just needed to fact check.
Yeah.
And so that is the point that we are making.
Yeah.
Journalism has to come to a higher standard. It
Yeah.
has to be held at the we have to come up higher, man.
And
It's
part
disgusting.
of the challenge that we have is one of the contentions that the Guyana Press Association raised yesterday in this press statement that they put out is the fact that the government seems to be wanting to do its own thing where media management and training is concerned, as against again partnering with UG that has a whole Center for Communication Studies, which I was a student and I'm a student of. Because you never stop learning.
Mhm.
I graduated from that center, and what GP is saying that you all should be trying to bolster
Strengthen that.
what they're doing, as
Strengthen
against
that
trying to
instead of-
undermine it in this way.
Because
I
it
think
is
I have a greater
symptomatic of the
concern.
PPP.
Right? There is
It
that one.
It is symptomatic of the PPP, though, Sharon. And they're setting up of parallel institutions in every way, shape, and form.
And let's talk too about a goal
Yes.
in which they handle these scholarships. You got UG again as a tertiary institution or premier, and it's not going through that route as a clearinghouse for who get these scholarships.
Yes.
You're going to set up a parallel organization with the former vice chancellor of UG,
University, yes.
Op-
Opaday?
Opaday.
Mhm.
You know, and again, you're undermining a whole system. Now, that is monies that could have been going to boost what's happening at UG, or and perhaps other developmental initiatives. But you gotta be fighting this thing. But just to come back to some of what GPA said.
No, I don't
yesterday,
want you to move
All right.
forward as yet.
Stick a pin.
I think I have a concern when it comes to the very fact that this whole announcement was made and that about having this media, it's a media academy. I can't
Mhm.
remember the way
Correct.
which it was referred to about this media academy and that basically it does not go in line, doesn't fall under the University of Guyana. I have an issue with it because we know the people that we are dealing with. And I rather suspect that it is having taken that form and structure because they want to control who is given a badge or a license or whatever it comes out at the end to actually go out there and do an interview and put something out on that. And I rather suspect that is the road they're going down, because I know that there are crazy concern about the voices of persons out there, and they're looking for any way and means necessary to have direct control over who speaks and who is invited to press conferences and all of these things. You know, they want to have a hands-on direct influence, hand-picked, right, on those persons. But there are international standards and regulations that are going to be overarching all of that, and no matter what is done, they have to fall in line at some point in time. But I'm going to be looking at that very, very keenly, because I have no trust in that system
As a matter of fact,
whatsoever.
It has to be some oblique motive that would encourage you not to build up unity.
Amongst that's part of the concern I think that the Gallopers Association had, because in its statement yesterday, it took exception with the panel that this academy put on when it was launched. It says here that based on the utterances from a number of the government officials, including its panelists, the undertone appeared to be engaged in self-censorship under the guise of responsibility and good. In this regard, we commend the globally recognized journalism ethics principles and code of
That's
conduct.
what I was just talking about.
It went on to say much of the debate and disagreements at the conference appear to stem from the decision of the organizers to conflate journalism, public relations practice, and social media influence. The statement goes on to say that whether or not this was the intent, it was a grave error, as each category of communication has its own role. And finally, I'm gonna add here, the fourth point they have here is that social media influencers, though they command some following, cannot and will not be regarded as journalists, and they should never contemplate seeing themselves as such. It goes on to add, if politicians across the divide claim to have any modicum of interest in improving the standard of journalism, then they ought to immediately cease utilizing social media influencers at the altar of expediencies of rich likes and shares. In this way, sections of the public are led to believe that such social media content is in keeping with globally accepted standards of journalism. Does this mean that anyone with a few followers, limited language competence, no regard for fact-checking, etc., can be regarded by himself or herself and the public as a journalist because a politician uses him or her as an information conduit?
We're talking about Jagdi on critics.
Shots fired.
Jagdi on critics.
Just in case you didn't know.
Let me be very clear.
I can bring my change.
Let us be very clear.
No, but you see, this is important. And again, government ought to be the repository and custodian of proper standards.
Yes.
And when you see the government just mangling journalism in the way they do, and you know, it occurred to me when I saw Kwame's photo with press freedom that this was the man that threw fecal matter in a journalist's face.
You know what is the challenge?
How does someone like that end up in the National
Is
Assembly?
struggling with chronicle, with slander and libel, but it's going to open its own media academy. Who is accrediting them?
No, that may be your avenue to get the funds. So maybe they should go full speed ahead and libel people, so we could sue them, sue the pants off of them. We got to be a little more responsible.
That's what it comes
I mean, we have to simply be, and journalists got to up their game and begin to be a bit more incisive in their reporting and put people on the spot. Journalists in Guyana appear to only want to put the opposition on the spot, put the government on the spot. They must be made to answer questions. And should they,
because there's no press freedom.
Precisely. Should they jeopardize your freedom and target you? There is an entire system of journalists' protection that is at your disposal. And that is activated like that, because you look across internationally, one thing they don't play with is the safety of journalists.
Yeah, it's absolutely
Because
important.
it's
That
important.
is the overarching guardrail of democracy.
Absolutely.
That is so important to every country. And that's why persons need to take it very seriously. So I know, like, and I encourage the few journalists that we do have, and I say that very directly. The few journalists that we do have, I encourage the few journalists that we do have to continue their work. You know, they do excellent work, and we have to encourage them to continue. We note their concerns very seriously, and those things are not things you just brush under the table, right? They have these concerns because they see certain patterns emerging, and they're trying to fight it, nip it in the bud, least temporary becomes permanent.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Like,
You know, talking
let's go.
about temporary becoming permanent, there was a tremendous editorial out of Starbucks News just yesterday, and they were talking about rocket science and democracy, Amanda and Jarida. And one of the things they've been talking about is this pervasive issue that we've had with the voters list and about sanitizing the voters list. And here is part of what they said in that paper, in that editorial yesterday, Amanda. Sorry, they said that claims that the voters list were padded, bloated, skewed, or otherwise distorted have been made by politicians from both the major political parties over many years. Complaints have also come from smaller parties and observers and continue to date. And in another section of that editorial, they say that we are living in an information age which began somewhere in the 1970s and the world in the developed world. But it came 20 years later, this side of the Atlantic, believe it or not. And the editorial goes on to say that despite the late start, however, Ghana has managed to keep pace with the advances in modern technology that allowed for digitization and reliability of data, even in the face of its legendary unreliable power supply. Why then were there no efforts made to set up a system linking GCOM and the necessary agencies that would discontinue the need for paperwork and bureaucracy over the reporting on deaths, prison terms, certified insanity, and other impediments for the purpose of decluttering the voters list? When we gonna get it right? You'll be kicking the can down the road. That's what Sabbath News is basically saying, and we gotta stop kicking the can down the road. I'm switching here because I want to get to some of the data that we all know, and even though it's mind-boggling on where the voters list is concerned, and I really wanted to quote it for us, because again, in this editorial, Sabbath News is saying that the list of electors of some 661,000 from a population of 748, right, is weird math. Right?
It's not
It's weird, man.
It's impossible,
and its
improbable.
inaccuracy has been noted and well ventilated. More likely, the 480,000 odd votes in the 2020 election were closer to the valid number of electors.
Yeah.
And so we gotta fix this.
Hence you have polling stations with a 98% voter.
Right? You gotta fix
turnout.
this.
I don't even want to go into
and
the
to put on the
dynamics of
table,
that right now.
The vice president did say that they're looking for legislation that empowers GCOM to take names off the list and add name to the list in a transparent fashion.
I want to say
The
this.
vice president is misleading the nation.
Mm-hmm.
There is legislation already in place to empower GCOM to do that. It is very, very clear what the legislation is. So let him not believe that he can come here
And
to
lie.
mislead people.
Disinformation.
We big and we got sick.
Disinformation.
That already exists. And in fact, since 2006, there was an agreement that what we call the National Register of Registrants will be retired. Because you remember, and there is a National Register of Registrants, and what that contains is every guy in his age 14 and above. From that NRR, the voters list is extracted,
Correct. which
which is every guy in his age 18 and above. So that is the basic framework. There are regulations that say that the chief immigration officer, the registrar of births and deaths, are required to remit to GCOM those names of persons who would have died, who would have migrated permanently for the purposes of cleansing the list. So let not Guyanese people be deceived by Jack Deo's utterances. The legal framework is there. What has happened is that there was a case brought and it was interpreted by the court that GCOM could neither remove nor add, no, could not remove
Correct.
names from the list. And that, I frankly believe, should be challenged. That decision
It
should
doesn't
be
make
appealed.
sense.
Because what you have done is that you have, through judicial interpretation, have a situation where you are adding names to a list without taking it out. And so I think legal action is important so that we get clarity on this issue. But Jagbio must know that there is a framework in place.
What
So don't
Jagbio wants-
bother like the
What Jack you want is for Claudette, and the other three on the commission, along with their handpicked CEO, to be able to extract names from it and put names on it. That's what they want, really, truly.
Right. And it is important that Guyanese demand better. Like, okay, why is it that we are not deserving of a society where if a government comes to power, it is because they have superior policies and not that they've skewed the electoral system or rigged election? Why is it that we don't deserve that? Is the question we have to ask ourselves. A nation gets the government it deserves. I didn't say that. That is a saying that is known around the world. And maybe, just maybe, we have the PPP because we as a people fail to demand more. This issue, as we're on it, of the way they have opened the floodgates with the registration of births and deaths, it is going to be a major issue for Guyanese. We are going to be relegated to second and third class citizens in our country.
Yep. Our person of interest today, folks.
Sammy!
One and only.
Hold a big up, Sammy.
One and only. Andrew knows that he's gotten 14 nominations to the Caribbean Gospel Awards, right? Or at the Caribbean Gospel Awards. And also, he was our Mashimani Soca Monarch in 2021 with Stadium.
Inside is not
Once you know that.
Congratulations.
Once you know that. Yeah,
Congratulations.
fantastic musician and
Oh,
artist,
my goodness.
gospel artist
Oh,
now,
my goodness.
making
And
forays
one
into
of-
the
You know what impresses me about him?
other genres.
Most his humility.
Yeah.
He's one of the most humble young men that you will ever see.
You know what? I wasn't introduced to Samuel Madas and his music until he was actually crowned the Soca Monarch. And I have to say, from that point in time, he had my interest in the way in which the lyrics and he has raw talent when it comes to his writing and all of that.
Writing,
I have to say,
vocals, production,
Yes.
international stuff.
And he does, and this is what impresses me about him. He does everything up to international standards.
every single
And
thing.
it's so amazing, and he got a lot of songs.
Yeah.
That he's a king, so I'm royalty.
Mhm.
I mean, like
On this one alone,
he
that's my
got
favorite.
it.
We ready?
On this one alone.
Oh,
I think we're ready. That's my
yeah.
favorite.
Yeah.
Yes.
Already.
No, that's one of my favorite for here. I think the lyrics, the lyrics is so everybody can relate. When you can write words down that everybody can actually relate to, that what makes you that exception. And he has done that.
Soft spot for I Can't Be the Only One.
Oh, you see.
Oh, no way.
You see, Samuel.
Because I
We
can't
know
be the
your
only one.
music, We know your music, and it has been out there, and I think we need to
Respect him, man.
celebrate him.
Congratulations,
And just these
Yeah.
year, I want to say that the nominations myself, being nominated, 14 nominations at the Caribbean Gospel Awards. I can tell you that this is a win for Guyana altogether, and the representation made by Samuel Medas.
And he can clean up.
Yeah, and we expect
Clean
nothing
up.
least than him cleaning up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Try them, Sam.
Sammy
Try
can
them.
clean up.
Try them over there. And that's what the program is
Oh
for.
goodness.
Against you, Mansa. Over to you. Mansa got the heavy lift. Heavy lift, the big issue.
Man, sound like those nurses, the nurses.
But from the inception, we have maintained that the foreign policy for Guyana is nebulous. There is no North Star anymore.
Yeah.
There are no principles that appear to be guiding our foreign policy direction. It's very transactional and very ad hoc. So, you find major announcements happening overseas. UTAD never knows what is going on. And the trouble with that with having a transactional foreign policy is that you become susceptible to which is the best deal in the moment without understanding the long-term implications for the nation. There ought to be some non-negotiable foreign policy positions that we take. Those appear to be done away with the Barrett Jagdeo regime. I will say that I'm looking to see, the emphasis that will be placed on the Arco Norte, the Northern Arch initiative, that they have an agreement on. I want to see whether that will come up for discussion and how we will deal with that, because like I said, it's too transactional, it's nebulous, it just appears that this is what we decide he want to do today and
what maybe
and what we can get and so
Photo.
on. Look, and David Granger warned, particularly in the case of Suriname, not to be fooled by this, because you see, when you have the benefit of history, you minimize mistakes.
Yeah, and the fishermen are
Look
seeing
at
that today.
what is happening with our fisher folk.
Yep,
Look
fishermen
at what
seeing
is
it today.
happening with our fisher folk, and their licenses are not being renewed. And when that announcement came about Suriname issuing licenses, I cautioned our shadow foreign affairs. That was a bad move. That was a horrible move. But again, the transactional nature of it. So you have, and this is what I said. The PPP, they don't really care about their own people. I am from the quarantine. I know the importance of fisher folk to the economy, and that is a large segment of their base. And let's be honest about it. When you look at the votes that come in, large segment of their base that can have a livelihood. Those that do have a livelihood, their fish catch is depleting. And so we have issues. And Guyanese have got to, the only way that this is going to be solved is if Guyanese continue to raise their voices and sound their voices against these constant missteps that the government appears to be engaging in.
Manta, I think you put everything in the context there. One of the things that interests me with this visit is that yesterday, if you were coming down from the East Coast, right onto Carifesta, right onto the St. John Road even, you see a lot of activities there. People were reading and so on. I said, well, we got to get a state visit every so often, because like the only time we read and pick up flags and so on.
Right.
And we have to, as you always say, demand more.
Because it is the paradigm that the ordinary Guyanese on an
deserve,
ordinary day, we don't deserve weeded streets and parapets.
Manicure.
And but let's look at it. That's something that's a mindset that is even present in our home.
Yeah.
Because we only break out the good china when we have guests. Do you see?
I don't do it. I don't do it. I tell you.
You were trained
I know
in a
people
manner,
do it.
You were trained in a manner that you break out the good china when you have guests. Not by my house.
Not my house.
I have
functional.
No, but I have the good china every morning.
Any day you want china.
You understand? That is what we do. My plates got look a certain way because that's it. I deserve it.
Yeah. And
And
that
anybody who comes to my home will join me in having it at the class that I have it at for me.
Yeah.
This breaking out the good china thing when people come, it has to stop.
Yeah.
That's one of the things.
This thing with house close and out close. Listen, there's certain things that I don't conform to, and those are some of the things.
Anytime you already close this, you
can reach. You can come. You can stop at my house, and I can come downstairs and go out with you.
Yeah.
I don't do it.
I had an aunt who go to bed with makeup on just in case she meet somebody in her dreams. She looking at you can't stand she. Any day she can cause it. And you always could cause it. So just in case you meet somebody in your dreams, you gotta go to bed looking.
But your children deserve your child. You have to teach your children, especially that they are deserving of the good things. You're right. They are determined. They're deserving of this.
You hold 2 cups. It is your second cup.
Yes, my goodness. Sure.
But you notice how we have been able to trace the psychological, the national psyche issue that you have. That the China does come out.
cut grass. when
My
it's
my mother was not like that. My
You know,
mother,
as we-
you
as-
come, you're
as
a
we
guest,
wrap
what?
up.
Especially foreigners that comes to your country. You know, you believe that somebody migrated, they come back, then they have to get the best of this and the best of that. I remember specifically my mother talking like she was very upset with something that someone came to visit and they were staying at a particular home, and that person literally like asked their child to like vacate the room so that they can stay in the room. My mother said, "Hell no, that would never happen.
No, but you see,
Never happen in her."
It's really
Yeah.
it's a little different. No, but you see, no, but it's so important. There's a flurry of activity.
Yeah.
Why we can't have a flurry of activity?
cut the grass. And
Why the grass can't
we
cut
were
every
talking here and
week?
showing here on this on one of the programs here
Mm.
that when they were opening the arch, they cleaned the drains just where the cameras had to take out, and then the rest when they opening the roundabout, sorry,
Yeah.
right to where the cameras would take out, and the rest of the drains you can see haven't been cleaned in a little while. That was left, and I'm certain it's still the very same
It's
very
the
same way. Right? We were showing on our affiliate program in the ring. I think it was on Monday night, if not Tuesday, that in Nimes, West Coast, how one section of the village is cleaned by the town council. The drains preparing for the matron rain,
Mhm.
and the other section of the village, because of who lives there, that has been left by itself. That's the challenges that we have in
Yeah,
this
but,
country.
yeah, but it speaks again to what kind of person do you have to be to do the job being very serious.
I understand.
Like how
Yeah,
how does
Yeah.
your mind have to
Yeah.
function for you to weed
yeah.
here, dig here,
Yeah.
and not dig there? It reminds me of a cartoon I saw.
It reminds me
With
of an article.
four men in a boat. The two are up in the boat, and the other two at the end with the water coming in, they're bailing. And the two of the boat said, "Thank God, the hole is not on our end."
Oh wow.
Mhm.
They clearly don't know the concept.
Yeah.
They clearly don't
You
understand
know,
the concept.
One of the things that kind of opened my views, staying in Trinidad a couple of days, a couple of mornings I was there, and every day I was going to work in Trinidad, there was something that always registered in my mind. There were always people cutting grass.
Always cut the grass.
Right?
And not
And not only
cut
cutting grass, the hole in the mesh.
The mesh, they have screened it off,
Yeah.
so no brick can fly
Yeah.
and knock motorists.
Yeah, that was a
thing.
cut. And I dare say, I dare
Yeah.
say, when the last administration took over, I told some folks, 'cause we
I'm
were
gonna be the
talking
devil's
about
advocate with this one.
about the cleaning, and I said, don't judge it just yet. When 2 years you see park still being clean, grass being cut, and so on, then you can just say we have changed,
Yeah.
right? And we saw that
Because
consistently
it's
for
a-
5 years.
It was a
We saw grass
people
being cut.
from in the communities were involved in it.
Yeah.
And employment was provided.
Yeah.
It is about us as Guyanese understanding that we deserve better and demanding better
Mhm.
from this government. There is enough. You can provide employment if you want to as a government. Employing people to just keep
Yeah.
the city clean.
Yeah.
It develops a whole
Their
different
neighborhood.
culture.
Yeah.
Neighborhood
Yeah.
democratic councils could be
Yeah.
empowered to employ people. Why is it that we are content to have?
Yeah.
I passed the roundabout this morning and there's garbage, there are boxes of garbage on that roundabout.
No.
Yeah, I was in the seawall yesterday.
And I even remember.
Passed through by the seawall yesterday, buying some food out there, and I saw a lot of bottles from the night before just there. And this was just after lunch, I think it was.
Yeah.
Saturday rather.
You have to change the structure in which you do things, because a lot of times persons, even the people that sweep up alongside the road and sweep up alongside the road islands, the sand and so that would have gathered there. I think it was you that was making the point that in some of our neighboring countries in the islands there, you have the persons that live in those areas are given the opportunity to have those little small contracts to keep those things clean, because it directly impacts them. It's right there next to their homes. So
And you provide employment.
Yeah.
you provide
But
them with an
there
income.
is-
Yes.
The reality is that there's not a will on the part of this
Yeah.
government to empower people at the community level.
So somebody got to get a
Right.
big contract
Somebody
to
gotta
do everything
come
to get a
out
big.
of there,
correct.
and not even from in the
But
constituency.
but you all realize how the Garden City changing because of the same habit imagine when whoever built the Carfessa Avenue, the medium there,
Mhm.
built it to put plants, but we
Mhm.
can't maintain it because we that's not part of our culture, maintaining plants. So we just concrete over the whole thing now. They did the same thing on the East Coast. The East Coast, the medium there was built to facilitate greenery in the center, and now they can't maintain it, so they just concrete the whole thing.
Right, because to give maintenance contracts is a problem, because the truth is a certain category of people, a certain class of people will be the ones doing that, and they can be economically empowered.
Yeah.
Because if we economically empower them, we prevent handoutation.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever been to Antigua and the airport there, how it's beautiful with the
Yeah.
greenery.
Yep,
Now,
yep,
I've been
yep,
there a couple of years ago,
Mm.
and my aunt was just there. I was asking her, "Is the airport still beautiful?" She said,
It
"Exact same way."
is. It is.
Exact
When
same
you
way.
so there's
See, by
this,
some people think they got just concrete whole airport. That's we want to keep
Singapore.
plants.
Singapore has one of the best international airports in the world. But it's very interesting that one of their main highways is designed as a runway. And they have bougainvillea plants planted along the entire highway. But they're potted. And in the case of an emergency, they could be picked up within a matter of 30 minutes, and that entire highway will be converted into an alternate runway. I mean, that's Pacabillion and planning. I mean, you know, and it's not that we are less capable of it in Guyana, but we just do not appear to have the political will to do it. We got the money because we're boasting about how our GDP looks.
What's the name of the book again? Capitalism and money.
Show me your money. Show me where you're spending money, and I'll tell you what you value.
Yeah. I think that's our time. I don't want to add anything else. I think that's our program. But so great having you guys.
Pull up the comments.
We've gone into the overtime. Candy's
Leslie
here.
Charles.
John
Jurel.
Yearwood. I see the Yearwood there.
Dave Jurel said this program giving the PPP trolls tips. Dave, we just hope that they can come and learn something. And that we work together.
The beautiful part about social media is that when this program is on a particular page, they have the opportunity to go on another page that they may find peace.
but the other thing too, Facebook is free. You don't have to pay.
Yeah.
All you need to be on Facebook is a camera.
Yeah.
Well, in a live way like this, a camera.
Yeah.
And you can go and have your own shows and talk whatever you want to talk about too.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're gonna continue to bring you credible information. We want to commend these books to you that we were talking about earlier, for us to really have an understanding as to where we are and how we charted the way forward. So Edward Gonzalez from the Bronx.
Edward.
Hi, Edward.
Man,
good morning to
interesting
you.
program.
Oswin.
Yeah, thanks.
Oswin says,
Edward.
excellent program, guys. We thank you very, very much.
And Quenlin wrote a book. The title of it is How Reading Changed My Life.
How reading changed my life.
Read. That's the point of my life.
I was a nerd.
Read.
I mean, my father used to say, Amanda, don't you want to go out? Because my job was being curled up at home in a book. Reading is absolutely fundamental.
That's how I spent yesterday, and I loved it.
Yes.
No
I need to touch up on some of the readings, but I listened to Sheridan and his appetite for literature and history altogether.
Has
age and stage and the amount of things you have to do when the days come. But I listen to Sheridan all of that, and I'm thinking to myself, the only books that I have dissected page by page,
the economics book.
It's the numbers book altogether. Like I've been through a system.
Because that's your brain. That's how your brain functions.
I have done calculus book.
I get a little crazy
cover to cover.
We don't So like Sheridan and I don't know. Numbers is how we think. Numbers is direct story.
But I'm reading an economics book right now
so
just for
many.
the broad learning in terms of basic stuff in economics, because you have to engage in it because the people.
You have to
people
understand,
challenges.
especially when I was making some brief mention the other day of gold and all of those things, and I think to myself, how many times I think that these are things we need to start sharing, the importance of the understanding of how to diversify resources when it comes to saving and investment and all of those things. We all have to start practicing it ourselves.
But I just say challenge yourself. And like every great journey begins with the first step. So through reading, I think people get bogged down by sometimes the
Thickness of the
the
book.
thickness of a book.
Mm.
But I say you gotta chop it up in parts. And me,
Parts.
I say if I
In
want to read a
parts.
book in months, believe it or not, here's some of math coming out. I go to the calculator, look at the books, the number of pages, and divide it by 30 days and see how much
And
do I
that
need
is
to
your
read
target.
in a day.
And that's
Yeah.
your
And
target.
in the day, I say how much do I need to read per hour.
Mhm.
Yeah.
2 pages every hour I need to read. And before you know it,
That is
The
how
book
I
is
read.
done.
before you
Yeah.
That
know
is
it,
how I read. I
that book is
read
done.
a few pages a day, and all of my books
Right.
are marked up
Yeah,
and underlined
yeah,
and
yeah.
ticked off. Guys,
Piece
reading
by
is
piece, but
important.
challenge yourself.
Some
Challenge
of
yourself.
you may have access to Audible,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audiobooks. I mean,
which have the
21st century.
audiobooks.
21st century.
My
So-
brother reads nothing. He plugs
Yeah.
in everything in
Everything
his
is
Yeah.
Audible.
That's
Yeah, and
different
you listen to
generation.
it, you clean,
Different
and you're
generation.
hearing books. Listen, it edifies
Yeah.
and it
Which is kind of how I learn. So when I either record your lectures, or if I'm going through my notes, I read my notes, record them reading it, and then I just listen back.
Yeah, because there's science behind
I'm
that.
just listening back to it.
Science behind
Listening
that.
back to it.
Yep. So guys,
You know?
we want to encourage you to go out there,
Read,
make it
read,
a
read,
great
read,
day,
read.
and listen, read.
Read,
Information
read, yeah.
is power.
I mean, we do lots of reading for y'all here,
Information
but
is power.
we want to
Yes.
get lazy.
You know, but we encourage you
Yeah.
to read these books,
Yeah.
understand where we came from
Yeah.
as a people, and what it will take for us to forge this Guyana
Mhm.
that we want to build.
Mhm.
So go out there and make it a great day, guys.
I said Elizabeth is saying I love the show, even though I'm unable to
To
watch
watch
every
But
day.
We love
Elizabeth,
it
you know,
when
you
you're
can
here.
go back.
Yeah,
You can go
yeah.
back to
Yes.
the page, and
Yeah,
this is a
sounds
good
fair.
time for Sherry to tell us how you can partner with us.
Yeah. So, guys, you can watch it on Twitter, watch it on YouTube, LinkedIn. YouTube has all the as well as our Facebook page, got
Yes.
all the programs we've ever done. YouTube, and we said we're going to be doing at least 1 week, 1 day of the week on YouTube very shortly, so people get more accustomed to
Yes,
YouTube,
the
because
platform.
Facebook seems a little iffy these days. Sometimes it goes down, but YouTube seems to be the
Yeah.
Consistent.
steady ship, as I
Yeah.
always say.
Yeah.
But again, part of doing these programs, we don't run out of water. We drink
Yeah.
the water and we mind help your business,
Yes.
contrary to things.
The
But
Patrice's instruction.
we're available via the PayPal system, Cash App, MoneyGram. I'm missing one. PayPal, Cash App, Zelle, MMG.
Yes.
We got Western Union too. We're available there, and via I said MoneyGram before, right?
Right.
If you need guidance, 627-6963. You're the diaspora, 592. Might need to put it in front. 592 627
Yes.
6963.
6963.
Did you say that? Did you say that?
Yeah,
Yes.
You said cash
Okay.
Cash
App.
App, Zelle, PayPal, MMG, MoneyGram, Western Union.
Yes.
So guys,
Yeah.
partner with us so that
Yeah.
we can continue to improve the program.
Yeah.
We can continue to,
Yeah.
bring you credible.
People give us money
Information.
in hand too.
Yeah.
Come on,
I
hold this
mean-
1,000, hold this 2,000.
Mm.
It's amazing.
It goes a
Yeah.
long way.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
I get walked up and say, "Oh, MP, how many things give Sharon this?" and it is it's so gratifying, and it
It
might
helps
not,
us. Helps
it's
us.
not a large amount,
Yeah.
but if several people give small amounts,
Yeah.
you're able to keep the lights on
And they do.
and the
Yeah.
camera rolling and water supply and
Yeah.
so on.
We
So,
little tea.
you know,
And a tea bag and some sugar.
Sharon can drink it tea. So guys, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for being a part of the FYI
Yeah.
family, and go out there and make it a great day.
I
You
see.
see?
Huberta, thanks for the edutainment.
Edutainment.
We've given
love
you,
it.
We've
We
given
love
you guys
it. We
lots
love
of
it.
content
Love
into
it.
the weekend. You
Love
can come back and watch the program, dissect, and
Sheila Boy, I said YouTube is a place to be. I know a lot of persons have a lot more confidence in the platform that
So
YouTube
we're gonna be
provides,
migrating pretty soon.
yeah.
Have a good
We're
one,
there.
guys.
Have a good day, guys.
Have a
See
good
you
weekend.
on Monday. It's,
well, I'll
it's
see
a
you guys
good.
back at 12, and then at 8, and then 12 tomorrow, then 12 on Sunday. But for the
But
rest of the team,
For the rest of
Monday
the team,
to-
it's gonna be
I don't know
it's
if
gonna be Monday.
I'll rope them into the podcast. Who knows?
You see, you
Hint,
never
hint.
know. You never
Hint,
know.
hint. Later, guys. Bye bye.
Bye.